With us today on Real Wealth TV is an individual I truly admire and respect. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Real Wealth Group, at the same time also the Chief Financial Officer of Courage Canada. I'd like to welcome Paulo.
Thank you.
How are you, Paulo?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you for taking the time off your busy schedule to be with us today.
Welcome.
For the sake of the viewers, could you just give them a high-level information on how your career evolved?
Sure. Always had a keen interest in investments and in finance from a young age. I attended the Schulich School of Business at York University. I studied there and have a specialization in finance. So after completing my studies, I spent some time, I'd worked for TD, or in fact Canada Trust before it came TD, CIBC, most recently for the Great-West Life Insurance Company. I spent a few years there learning about financial service distribution.
Okay.
And left to start what is now known as the Real Wealth Group of companies.
Yes, I know the key area you're really focusing on is on real estate developments. Let's dive into it. What constitutes a great investment opportunity as far as real estate is concerned?
Sure. I mean, there's so many factors that go into taking a look and adjudicating a real estate transaction, but some general ones are to take a look at the location of a property. You'll find that with each of our transactions, we're within half a kilometer to a kilometer away from major public transit and major highway infrastructure. Great example is a project at 35 Tangiers Road, which is located right by the new Aquila and Finch subway extension. Not only is a subway on site, but there's also light rail transit that's connecting that site to other parts of Toronto and eventually the airport, Pearson International Airport, and also a major GO Transit station improvement in the area. So location is vitally important. Also, what is it that the city would like completed on that site? So always want to make sure that your development plans are well within the aspirations or the objectives of the city. We want to look for the path least resistance, and we don't want an uphill or a major challenge in dealing with the city and potentially having to go through the expense and effort of going to the Ontario Municipal Board to overturn a decision that the city may have made. So location, objectives of the city, and what's happening in the area as well.
Great. I heard you are really the trailblazers as far as the regeneration of this area is concerned. Let's move on to a good question that a possible investor would probably ask a real estate developer like you. Why use investor money? Why not just use your corporate resources or possibly your network and possibly get the rest from the bank? Is there something an investor should know about these types of transactions?
Great question. The short answer is those resources that a developer might have available to them are never enough. And so what generally we try to do when working with developers or acting as developers ourselves in partnership with other developers is we seek first mortgage financing from a financial institution. And then the later parts of the projects that are serviced by soft costs are raised through private offerings by way of second mortgage and with a developer's funds. So the bank just won't give a developer enough money for 100% of the project. They'll give a certain percentage of the funds, and then the rest are provided by private investors. So there's always a need, and there always has been a need for private investors to help fund these types of projects. And this isn't new. It's been happening for a long, long time in this country and other parts of the world.
And it's actually a typical way of construction finance.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
Maybe you could give our viewers bird's eye view of what types of soft cost a real estate developer would incur as far as these projects are concerned.
Sure. So to help clarify for the viewers, a soft cost is basically an expenditure that a developer would make that doesn't necessarily go into the ground. So a better way to describe that is, a hard cost would be excavation of a site, removal of dirt, pouring of concrete. That's what's necessarily referred to as a hard cost. That adds some hard value to the site. A soft cost is for the consultants that are needed to prepare a site plan application. Typical consultants that a developer may use are engineering consultants, a planner, a project manager, the architect, traffic studies, wind studies. In the case of one of the more recent projects that we funded and developed, located at 35 Tangiers, we had need for an aeronautical engineer to tell us how high we could possibly build this building while it being in the vicinity of the Bombardier Air Force Base. So there's a variety of soft costs, and those are just a few of the consultants that you might need.
Okay, well, that's a good thing. That leaves an opportunity for a retail investor to get involved in these types of opportunities. Let's go into syndicate mortgage investments. What's the good? What's the bad?
Sure. I think one of the most important things that investors need to be aware of when participating in a syndicate mortgage is not to paint all mortgage opportunities with the same brush. They have to investigate the individual merits of each transaction. It can be a lot of work, but it's certainly not something that an investor should not complete. Investors should educate themselves how to familiarize themselves with the development prospects for a particular property, the way that property has been valued or evaluated by an appraiser, where the project or what state the project is currently in, and how much time is going to be needed to complete it. So those are things that an investor needs to look at. Some of the things they need to look at to determine whether or not the investment might be a good one. Oftentimes investments can be bad because there are poor valuation methodologies used. Sometimes an investor cannot get all the information they require because of poor transparency between the developer and potentially the brokerage as well. Right. Pro forma financial statements may be too aggressive. What the developer is trying to do on site may be too aggressive. And so these are all items that an investor has to take a look at and satisfy themselves that what they're being communicated is accurate.
Right. Let's talk about appraisals. What are the types of appraisals available? What do you typically use in real estate developments? Is there a standard? And what should an investor be cognizant about? That's a lot of questions there.
Sure. I mean, there are different ways to value a property. Some are not really relevant to development. So to elaborate further, the Real Wealth Group only uses AACI appraisals. AACI appraisals are appraisals prepared by an accredited investor that's licensed by the Appraisal Institute of Canada. They go through a very rigorous course of study, equivalent, I would say, to a CFA right. course of study or university education. Right. They abide by a professional code of conduct, and they carry insurance. Right. And those appraisals are accepted, really, depending on how they're prepared, all over Canada, the United States, and really all over the world. So that's the only type of appraisal we believe should be used for development. Other types of appraisals could include valuation opinion, letter of opinion, from a realtor. I think that those types of appraisals are relevant in certain situations. For example, if you're looking for a quick assessment of what your home might be worth, I think a letter of opinion might suffice for you to get a good idea. It is certainly not a relevant way to evaluate a development property. It does not take into consideration all the factors and data points that an AACI appraiser would.
Okay. And if we're still to develop an existing property, I know there's three types. There's the income approach, there would be the replacement approach, and of course the direct comparison. Which one is ideal for these types of opportunities?
Sure. Definitely for development, there really is only one approach. It's the direct cost comparison approach. You want the appraiser to take a look at the surrounding area and figure out what other similar pieces of land have sold for. That'll give the investor a great idea as to what the property they're about to invest in is actually worth and what their risk profile or loan to value ratio would be on that particular transaction. Using a replacement cost really doesn't make much sense because there really isn't anything to replace at that moment in time. That methodology is reserved for an already constructed building.
Okay.
Likewise, the income approach is only relevant for properties that produce income. A development obviously may one day produce income in the future, should it be a commercial property or an apartment building that produces ongoing income. But for the purpose of development, since there is no income, it would not be a relevant way to value a property. And using those techniques may result in a higher valuation, and one could argue that that valuation might be inflated or overstated, which means the risk profile to the investor is quite different.
Okay, that's very telling. I know there are possibly some opportunities that use letter of opinions, so it's not ideal as far as these types of opportunities are concerned. How about talking about legal paperwork? What should an investor look for in legal paperwork to protect themselves?
I think for starters, an investor has to make sure that everything that's being communicated to them, either verbally through the salesperson that may have introduced the opportunity to them, or something that was relayed in a PowerPoint presentation or on some marketing material or a term sheet, everything there must find its way into the legal paperwork. And doing that will ensure that everything you've been told is actually reflected in the legal paperwork. So aside from that particular language, you also want to make sure that, or it would be sensible to have general security agreements used, negative pledge agreements. The use of a mortgage administration agreement is also very important. You also want to make sure that the legal or the lawyers that are involved in the transaction are not conflicted. So many times there might be one lawyer that handles multiple aspects of the transaction, representing the borrower, representing the investors, representing the administrator. Could cause problems, and there are certainly inherent conflicts there. So an investor, aside from being satisfied with paperwork and looking for the items that I mentioned, should make sure that their interests are being served by different legal practitioners. The borrower has its own lawyer, the administrator has its own lawyer, the investors have their own lawyer.
And lastly, I know with the ever present stock market volatility, investors are looking for other ways to invest, and there certainly has been an appetite in the past few years for investments like this. There are good companies for sure. What makes Real Wealth Group different as far as you are concerned?
What really makes us different is our desire to put ourselves right in the same line as our investors. We will not market or present a mortgage investment opportunity to our investors or to the general public that we are not personally invested in as a company or as individuals. So we're just not interested in brokering a whole host of transactions where we don't have the level of transparency and control we need to protect not only our own investment but that of our investors. So I think that's pretty unique to us, that we'll be involved in every transaction on the development side that we put forth to the public.
Yeah. You also spoke about transparency. Are you open if an investor would want to ask for anything under the sun as far as the investment opportunity is concerned?
Absolutely. We pride ourselves on transparency, on integrity, and we make a variety of documents available. In fact, all documents available. So if an investor wants to review an appraisal report, they want to see the minutes of a meeting that the developers have had with a city. They would like to see the planning report. They would like to see the studies that certain consultants have prepared. All that is available to them for their review.
Okay. Thank you so much, Paulo. Is there any parting words as far as syndicate mortgage investments are concerned?
Sure. I think mortgage investments can be an exceptional way for someone to invest their money. But I would caution every mortgage investor is to really educate themselves in general fashion about what mortgage investments are and what things they should look at when it comes to each and every single mortgage transaction. I would urge investors not to paint all mortgage transactions with the same brush. They are all very different with their own unique set of circumstances and facts. And I would also encourage investors to visit our website at realwealthgroup.ca and download our consumer guides that'll give them a good crash course, if you will, on some of the items they should look for when looking at private mortgages.
You have completed the race for Tangiers. Is there anything exciting around the corner?
Definitely. We've been busy at work on a transaction to follow Tangiers for the last 6, 7, 8 months. Happy to report that'll be a commercial transaction and raise in Aurora, along with some other opportunities we're working on, some residential projects in the Vaughan area.
Thank you so much, Paulo, for your time. I hope the viewers, I'm quite sure the viewers were able to find a lot of information. All the best to you in business and in life.
Thank you.
In behalf of Real Wealth TV, Roberto Lloren, I hope you enjoyed this episode.